You can immerse yourself in indulgences, but that can't drown out the horrors that you committed. The Walking Dead World Beyond, Season 1, Episode 3, The Tyger and the Lamb. What was this episode about? We picked up right where we left off in the last episode, the Blaze of Gory, and most of our characters were trapped where they left off that episode. Weren't able to escape the blaze without some sort of a distraction. In the continuing trend of this show, we got another character featured in this episode where we got to get some flashbacks and learn a little bit more about the character. This episode was Silas's turn. And I liked the little bits of the backstory that we got. It definitely made the character more sympathetic, and it made the character more interesting when prior to this I wasn't super interested in this character. I hate to say it, but the characters I find the least interesting and the part of the show that I find the least compelling is actually the two main characters, Iris and Hope. I feel like they're dynamic. They're like kind of sister dynamic, and their backstories and things like that have been done before in better scenarios in the Walking Dead universe already. I feel like it's kind of retreading old ground, and I don't really see how much further that kind of relationship and their kind of character development can really go. I think some of the other characters, like ones I've mentioned about being interested in the past, like Huck and Elizabeth and Felix, and I think some of those characters have potential to grow in interesting ways where it'll actually keep you watching. I don't really see that in Iris and Hope. And considering those are your two focal point characters, I think that might be a little bit of a problem with the longevity of the series. We might not encounter that as a problem because it's only going to be 20 episodes split over two 10-episode runs. That might not end up being a problem because we're not going to have those characters carrying a long-running series. Now that we've kind of touched on my spoiler-free discussion of this episode, let me kind of give you my overall thoughts on the quality of the episode before we go into spoilers. I think that it was an okay episode. I did like learning about Silas, and I liked the scene at the end of the episode, which I'm going to go into in spoilers. But outside of that, I don't think it was super compelling. There was some development between Hope and Iris, but as I said, that's probably my weakest point of the show so far. So that doesn't really carry itself as a strength to me. We do have a little bit more of an idea of what's going to go on of the group going forward plot-wise, because we did kind of get the groups kind of merged in this episode. It's a light spoiler, but whatever. Though in terms of overall quality of the episode, it was well made. It had a little bit of a cheesy element where there was a scene where there was a poem being read in the background while things were happening, and that was a little heavy-handed. But it was kind of par for the course so far. We are getting further character development, and I did like the little backstory bits that we got with Silas. Now that we have gone spoiler free, let me go into spoilers. Like I said earlier, we learned about Silas in this episode, and his backstory wasn't as thoroughly plotted out as the other flashbacks we've gotten. It was very bits and pieces, but from the pieces that we got, he obviously is a socially awkward individual. He has a difficult time connecting with people his own age and people in general. He wears headphones a lot where he listens to recordings from his uncle and his grandparents that kind of drown out the world around him. And he's obviously viewed negatively by the people around him. And that seems to stem from the fact that it looks like he may have killed his father. I don't know what happened to his mother. Maybe his father, like my just projecting theories, his father probably maybe was drunk or something like that, killed his mother, he killed his father, maybe he was abusive, something along that line. We don't get a full flashback saying what happens, but there's enough we get in terms of the bloody hands, the fact that he gets put in handcuffs in one of the flashbacks, the fact that they show him beating somebody when he thinks the zombie it looks like his father, somebody wearing a white t-shirt with the flannel shirt over it. It's like a typical abusive father kind of thing that they have going on there, that image, and he's just pummeling this person. And so that's kind of the sense that we get. There's a lot of harping on when he first arrived and at was it Monument High, the place that they're at the school, and Felix is saying this is a place where you can have a fresh start, and there's when he accidentally overhears some people talking about him when his headphones stopped working. They're saying, I thought we were supposed to keep the monsters out, and I can't believe they let him in here. And so I'm definitely getting the sense that he killed at least his father, but I don't think it was something that he did maliciously. I think it was a self-defense thing or something like that. And that has led him to fear himself. That's why he doesn't want to attack the empties, because he feels like that's letting the violence out. That's the thing that is the thing that he sees in himself that causes him to be afraid. He's not afraid of the stuff around him. He's afraid of himself. Beyond the information about Silas, we get Felix and Huck finally catching up to the core four, and they were following the trail that was being left by Hope, who was leaving like the food containers, like the cans of peaches and things, so they would be able to track them. And part of that seemed like it was because she wanted to be brought back. Part of it was because she wanted them to, merge with the group to keep them safe. There's kind of conflicting information there, and I mean, Hope's mind is kind of conflicting with what it wants. And we got that plot line resolved. We also got the whole siren thing where Hope wanted to go off and start up this siren to draw the zombies away from the group so they can get through the blaze of gory. And she was able to, after taking the entire siren apart because the crank broke, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But in the long run, they all get out. And there was even a moment where Silas gets to act and kind of overcome his whole scared of himself and acting kind of thing and hold up the tires as they all escape, and neither of the two adults help him out, which is awesome. Thanks for keeping them safe. The dynamic between Iris and Hope gets to expand in this episode because Hope finally reveals to Iris that she blames herself for her mother's death on the night that her mother died, that she kind of scared the woman that ended up shooting her mother, and then she killed her in return. And she has carried that with her. She never told Iris about this. And Iris has kind of gone this whole time blaming herself. So, of course, she didn't seem to hold it against her in this moment, but you can definitely kind of see how she was acting towards Hope after learning this, that she does blame Hope for making her carry it for this entire time. And that's kind of a crappy thing to do. But they seem to get over it really quick. I'm sure it'll come up again. I can't imagine it just being over in one scene. But that's a little bit of development that we got there. Like I said, this seems kind of like a retreaded storyline from, that's been done in the past on either Fear the Walking Dead or The Walking Dead. But it's kind of the emotional core of the show, and you kind of have to take it or leave it. The last scene that we get in this episode, and my favorite scene of the episode, is with Elizabeth, the leader of this branch of the CRM, where one of her sergeants, I think it was, comes to her apartment and is saying that he doesn't understand why they killed everybody at the school, and he doesn't see them as a threat. And she tries to impart on him how important it was that they killed all of them. They don't go into a lot of detail. All she says is that they were going to be a threat, and he doesn't believe her. He says, I don't believe that they were going to be a threat one day. And she pulls this whole display off where she, turns all the burners on the stove on, and she turns the TV on, and she turns the radio on, and she opens the fridge, and she turns the fans on. All this, using all of these luxury things that we're used to not seeing in the Walking Dead universe. We don't usually see people who have working television sets and refrigerators and all of this power and luxury and all these items that were comfort items from before everything fell apart. And she's just kind of throwing it out there, and there's all this noise and sensory overload, and she's saying, we have all of this. We have power, we have refrigeration, we have heat, we have all of these things, and we have to protect that. We have to protect those 200,000 people. And she kind of motions out the window. So it's like, that's a community of 200,000 people. That's a lot of people on Walking Dead standards. Usually we're used to seeing like under 100 in a community. I'm sure in the next season in The Walking Dead we'll see the Commonwealth, and that's going to probably have a lot of people, but that's nothing in comparison to this. That's an actual population. And somehow those 200,000 people were threatened by this school with survivors in it. I don't see the connection there, and neither did this person, who was then dragged away by armed guards to stay at the complex until he was deemed worthy of going back out in the field to help the CRM, in a labor capacity, of course. Once he's dragged out, we see a shot focused on Elizabeth sitting at the table with these maps kind of spread out over the place, and there's a moment of silence. And she sits there and kind of stares off into nothing, and then she gets up and she turns back on the stove and she opens up the fridge and turns on all these things, and it's like she's trying to drown out the things that she's not proud of with all of this luxury, all of this comfort. This is why I'm doing this. I'm trying to remind myself of these things. But meanwhile, she just killed all of these people. And the last thing we see is a tear fall from her eyes onto the map. So this is a conflicted character. She's doing what the CRM wants her to do, and she's enforcing the CRM's policies, but there's obviously conflict there, and there's obviously emotion behind this. She's not a senseless drone like it kind of seems like she was being made out to be. So answering the question that I had in the premiere, why she gave the map to the main group, maybe she actually does genuinely want to see them succeed. I don't know. Maybe it's a part of her that wants to see them tear this down, or maybe it's just something that she's trying to bury. I'm assuming we'll find out. I would really love to see an Elizabeth-focused episode where we actually get flashbacks and see where she came from and learn a little bit more about her. Unfortunately, I feel like that's going to be pushed off until probably at least after we're done with the core four and Huck. And I don't know if they can throw anybody else in there. There aren't really any other characters that we might want to learn about. So that's my review of Season 1, Episode 3 of The Walking Dead World Beyond, The Tyger and the Lamb. If you're liking these reviews every week, definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell so you know what's up, and definitely leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts on the show so far? What's your favorite character? What character do you want to see kind of flashback exposition telling us about? And I'll catch you in the next review, guys.